Hey everyone, welcome to the video. I hope you are all having an amazing day today, wherever you are. And I'm really excited today because I'm here with Danny, who is the creator of Make DeFi Better, MDB, and we're here to have a chat about all the latest things that are happening. And I'm sure you're aware of all the exciting stuff which is happening. So I'm going to ask him all stuff about that, updates, announcements, what's been happening, and a whole lot of questions. And also, he's very kindly given me $100 worth of MDB tokens that I can give away to one lucky winner. So keep watching the AMA, and at some point through the AMA, I'll tell you how you can go in the draw to win that. And I'll probably pick that in 4 or 5 days' time, but I'll give you a little bit more info. So let's get into it. Danny, thanks so much for coming on. And how are you doing this morning?
Splendid. Absolutely splendid. Yeah, really excited. We've got, Infinity pre-sale tomorrow. We've got our launch this week. So yeah, a lot of deja vu from 4.5 months ago when we first launched the project. But yeah, it's exciting times.
Yeah, cool. Well, maybe that's a good place to start then, because we were talking off camera about the whitelisting and the pre-sales and Infinity and all that. Do you want to, perhaps for people who aren't too familiar about what Infinity actually is, just give a bit of a summation about what it is and how they can get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe because somebody might be watching and they don't know anything about MDB, and MDB is sort of designed to be a sustainable ecosystem that's responsible. Hence, the term "Make DeFi Better," and it's a mix of different assets. We have MDBs almost like the share in the ecosystem, which has this capital synergy model underneath it. We have NFTs, which pay passive income for life. For the life of the contract, and then we have 2 stable assets which have slightly different twists to them, but they can never depreciate in value. They can only appreciate. And Infinity really is the last piece in the ecosystem, certainly phase 1 of the ecosystem, which is much more volatile. It comes with some risk, but also, with risk becomes potentially huge reward, right? The probability of seeing MDB times 3 or 4 in a day is very slim. Because of the mechanics, but also the probability of seeing it drop 60-70% in a day is also extremely slim. Whereas with Infinity, it's a lean LP, it's very low taxes, so it can be traded. The movement can be very aggressive, so there's potentially huge lurches in value that can happen. It's very sustainable as well. It's got stable backed LP that's hyper appreciating, and it's also 20-to-1 backed by fund to LP ratio, but it will have a lot of volatility. So the direction as a trend, should go from bottom left to top right. However, the peaks and troughs around that line through its journey are much more volatile than anything else within the space. So we definitely put like a scary film that's coming out, when they put a label on it that says, beware, if you watch this film, you might have nightmares. Infinity, can be the ride of your life, but, and we're always, very honest about these things. And, with reward comes risk, and you can't divorce the two. And that's the fundamental difference between Infinity and anything else within the ecosystem.
Okay, cool. There's a lot of stuff you brought up there, which is really cool. And I do want to touch on some of it. Just quickly, for anybody who does want to get a more in-depth look at MDB, I did a analysis video of it. So you can go and check out that. I'll leave a link for that in the description as well, if you want to find out more about MDB and how it works, and the different tokens, and sort of the more riskier tokens and the more stable tokens. But one thing you said in there, which stood out to me, and perhaps I think people might be interested in, is you said that, it can never really go below a certain price, but it can always go up. And I guess that's a really big claim. And we do see it a little bit with a couple of other projects out there in terms of price stability. Do you want to just explain how that's possible, like to never really go down, but always go up?
Yeah, and I think maybe so we don't confuse the two. I think if we look at our tokens, of which we've got MDB at the moment, and then we've got, we classify them differently. They're all tokens, to be fair. But if we look at, say, MDB and then Infinity, they're both built on the capital synergy model, just with very different surface characteristics, actually, which lend themselves to different types of behavior. MDB is high tax, it's 10% in, 15% out. And the relationship it has with the trust fund, also the size of the LP, means that it behaves in a completely different way to how Infinity will behave. Our stable-backed assets, they mathematically just cannot depreciate in value. It's an absolute impossibility, and that's not because of any sort of algorithmic trading or flash loaning or anything like that. It's actually super simple. When you buy one of the stable-backed assets, you pay a small tax. That tax goes into the LP. Your token that you bought is minted, and when you sell it, you take value from the LP in BUSD, less a small tax again, and your token that you redeemed is destroyed. So therefore, because there's a tax in and out every time that process happens, it means that the LP is always 100% backing of the total supply in value plus $1. So that means that, if Phoenix Plus started at $1 around 7-8 weeks ago, today is, the TVL shot up to 1.5 million because we're using it for the pre-sale for Infinity. Today it's 126, and it will never go down. It will never go below 126 now. And with MDB Plus, I think the price today is probably about 118. That started at 106, but it just cannot go down. So I think probably the most suspicious thing about it is how simple it is actually. But it's just a mathematical impossibility that the price can depreciate. But at the same time, MDB is our mother token, has been on a real run for the last sort of 7-ish weeks, and people have seen that times 5. You won't see the stable-backed asset times 5. It's the sheer volume of capital it would need to go through it exponentially day by day would just be, you'd be getting up to hundreds of millions of dollars within the space of weeks would be required. So it's just different characteristics.
Okay, so would it be fair to sort of, like, as a summary of that, then the MDB Plus token is basically a stable coin-ish, just for simplicity's sake, a stable token?
We call it a stable-backed asset because it's 100% backed at all times. So if the price of it and the TVL is always 100% backed plus $1 by stable, that's in the contract.
Okay, so it's a stable-backed asset, but because of the little taxes that it has, it slowly creeps up over time. And you can actually check that out in the chart as well. If you look at the chart, it's just a slow increase up. And the MDB token has a lot more tax in it, and it's a lot more, I want to say volatile, but it's sort of volatile in the right direction. I was actually checking out the chart before we started chatting, and it's seen some great gains. Do you want to sort of maybe explain why you think those gains are happening right now?
Yeah, it's a combination of different factors, I think. There's so MDB as a token, it was hugely undervalued before. So there was fear in the market. You'll notice 2 big dips on our chart since we launched, and both of those correlate with Terra Luna and then the second big crash that we had around Celsius. But in the bottom of those, perversely, the MDB asset was actually a very, very, very safe investment because of this trust fund to liquidity pool ratio. And the market cap was very, very low at that point. If we took out the LP and tokens that wouldn't reach it to the open market, there was times when the market cap was 80% backed by the trust fund. So it was hugely undervalued. That's kind of the first piece. There was a point for a nanosecond where the trust fund could have bought out the whole supply of MDB, actually. So that's how safe it was. Whilst the chart, people look at charts, it's down, scary, don't invest. And actually, that was an amazing time to buy MDB. Just looking at the fundamentals. We launched Xenia, which, our token has these strong fundamentals, but then we layered on top of that you can now single stake that token and you can earn rewards from single staking, which is, extremely low risk. So you think people who stake day one of Xenia they've been earning probably on average around 25% APY since they staked it, and they've seen the value of their token go up many X's at the same time. And you can also farm. So you can provide liquidity for the protocol. You could pair your MDB with BNB, add that to our farm. And also, that's, to be fair, that's never dipped below 150% APY, and that's very sustainable. It's back up to, I think this morning, back up to 220%. So you add these incentives to lock up the supply. At the moment, we have 56% of our supply is in the single staking pool alone, forgetting the farms, the NFT contract, the LP itself. So a huge amount of MDB supply has been locked up. Whilst also then you've got this capital synergy model that's starting to execute. And I think as well, when you perform well in a very difficult market, I think whilst we would like the trading environment to be maybe a little bit kinder to us, a difficult trading environment gives an opportunity to maybe, the analogy I use, I feel sometimes like a bit like with a shrimp boat in Forrest Gump after the storm, and I think that gets a lot of eyes and a lot of attention. I think the team we get, we're not perfect, but I'd say we get probably 8.5 out of 10 things right. And we learn from sort of the 1.5 things that we've got wrong. And yeah, and I suppose, a number of different things coming together at exactly the right time, and that's reflected in the chart.
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting as well, you mentioned about the right time, because right now it is a really difficult time for everything in DeFi, and everything's plummeted, pretty much 99.9%, or maybe not as bad. But your token, the proof is in the chart. And even though a lot of the other projects, you can't base the success of the project purely on the chart, because I think, everything's down right now. But you are, all those devs are still doing a lot of work to try and survive the bear market, but you guys are doing a lot of work and seeing that positive price action. So, the future could look pretty cool when the eventual bull run does come around. What do you think will happen to the MDB ecosystem once we get a more favorable market?
Yeah, look, I think obviously it helps, right? More volume, more liquidity. The way our system works is if we had no volume, it would still work. It's designed to do its thing. Even if nobody ever bought the token, it would effectively eat itself over time and grow exponentially. If you throw in more volume into that and more liquidity, it just speeds up that process, quite frankly. Because of the way the mechanics within the protocol work. So clearly, better times would help us. On the flip side of that, though, it means that every man and his dog can start releasing 50 bazillion APY projects again, and people start investing in those things. So I think maybe it's a double-edged sword. We try not to talk about the bull market, because I put that in the category of things that you can't control, and we focus on the things that we can. And so clearly it would help us, but at the same time, we never want to be dependent on things that are outside of our control.
Yeah, no, totally fair enough. I think that's pretty reasonable and a very sensible thing to do. And when you are in control of the things you can control, then obviously, that's going to be beneficial for the project, because why worry about stuff you can't control? So let's get into... Sorry, what was that?
I said definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We've been very lucky as well, Dan. I think we so when I designed this protocol, I did it at a time when everybody was rebasing, right? It was all inflationary. And I'm not the sort of person that's going to do something. There's a couple of things. I don't want to do something that can't be around in 2, 3, 4 years, right? And you don't have to be a mathematician to work out that you can put $10,000 into something and it says it's going to minimum 200x over a year, and that's going to be sustainable. Then, 10,000 into $2 million times 1,000 people, all of a sudden you've got a protocol with the capability to suck up all of the capital in the world. And we know that probably isn't going to happen. So we went in a different way, which was very sustainable. And also the second thing, I don't want to go to sleep at night and wake up in the morning and something outside of my control, or something that I can't influence at all, has completely destroyed all of our efforts, all of our investors' efforts. So we took a lot of time to design a protocol that actually becomes more healthy in very difficult times. And what I mean by that is, if we saw a 90% crash of our token, the trust fund could buy so much of its own supply, taking it out of circulation forever, that perversely the J curve would become steeper in the future than it would have done without the crash. So we designed these things. We always had a stable backed asset in our white paper. So it meant we launched April 29. 7 days later, Terra Luna happens, and we had a stable backed asset ready to wheel out. We launched our stable. It was meant to launch 6 weeks after we launched, but because we had all the work done in the background, we launched it 2 weeks after we launched. So we were very lucky as well, because all of a sudden people are saying, okay, well, where do I put stable? Where do I put my capital in a much sort of like safer environment? And we were like, oh, we've got this, we've got this other asset. So I think some of it is planning for the worst scenarios. And then by pure terrible luck, we had the worst scenario happen very soon after we launched. But luckily we had planned for that. And then on top, we also had assets in the pipeline that were, it became, all of a sudden everybody's now launching a stable backed asset. But, when you're doing it 3, 4, 5 months down the line, it's difficult to maybe be ahead of the curve. But we kind of had it in the drawer ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, that sort of tends to happen with DeFi, doesn't it? Is that something happens, a bit of it works, a lot of it fails. You take the bit that works, and people who are sort of late to the game. I don't know, just the way that you're talking, and after talking to various other devs, via Twitter or whatever, it seems that you've actually planned for all this stuff, where just from some of the actions of other projects, it seems like maybe they have planned, but they almost does get a sense of making it up as they're going along. But hey, I'm not part of the dev teams for those projects, so I don't know. It's just my opinion.
No, I agree completely. It's the cliche white paper, right? It's the decks, the launch pad, and it's just, yeah, it's so I think with anything, you've got to try and solve a problem that maybe you think that other people aren't solving, and that's how you build a successful business. In my sort of real life business experience, somebody taught me many years ago that if you're not going to, and not everybody makes it, obviously, but if your strategy isn't to be a top 3 of something, don't do it. Yeah. If you're not going to change the game, then don't do it. So that's, I agree completely, Dan. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, cool. I mean, people do throw around the word utility as well. Not a huge fan of that word. I think it gets used much too often, but I guess what people are talking about is, how does it help people? What need does it fix? What does it actually do apart from give us passive income? And it sounds like with your tokens, they do actually do something, and it is actually something which you would want to invest in if you wanted to. Speaking of your tokens, then, do you want to chat a little bit more about Phoenix? Not Phoenix, Infinity. Just to maybe explain a little bit more about how that works.
Yeah, and Infinity again is a very clean system. Actually, Infinity, almost if it was a standalone token, you could almost just have it as completely decentralized. It's very clean, and what I mean by that is you've got a skinny LP, which means it's volatile. You've got low taxes, which means you can trade that volatility, or you can take your tokens and you can stake them. And the Infinity fund that sits behind it will be used to either buy back and burn Infinity out of existence. So again, it's hyperdeflation, meaning this external capital inflow, or the fund is used to buy MDB and distribute MDB to the stakers of Infinity. And then you've got an NFT as well. And the NFT is I suppose your safest play maybe in the ecosystem of Infinity, because you can buy the NFT. It's the equivalent of having $1,000 worth of Infinity at launch. You stake that NFT. It's auto staked actually on our Xenia platform. And that will earn you proportionately the equivalent of having the same amount of Infinity. But it means that you've also got this secondary asset, right? Secondary asset that you can take to the market and you can sell. And if Infinity is done a times 10, then actually that $1,000 of Infinity that's locked in the NFT is now worth, or certainly it's a ticket to the equivalent of staking $10,000 worth of Infinity. So there's sort of the three elements, but it's very clean because the way the taxes work, it's only 5% tax buy and sell, and 40% of those taxes are being fed into the LP token, which is Phoenix Plus. So I mentioned earlier Phoenix Plus, which has gone from $1 to $1.25-ish in sort of 7-8 weeks. That's what Infinity will be paired to.
Mm-hmm.
And so the LP like for like will always be appreciating. Now, obviously the way LPs work, that could be distorted by trades, but like for like, it will only be going in one direction. If ETH and BNB crashes 80%, it has zero impact on the LP pair of Infinity. The other 60%, that 5% tax, goes into the Infinity Fund. The Infinity Fund is invested in a number of partners. The ROI from those investments are used to buy staking rewards and buy back and burn Infinity.
I'm aware of Freeway, and perhaps people aren't really aware of Freeway, but I was just wondering what attracted you to invest money into Freeway?
So Freeway, what attracted us to invest money into Freeway? I think one of the first things you look at, if you look at, say, yield nodes, is another good example, 400 million under management, right? So when you start investing significant sums, you want to see scale there. So you can see experience managing scale. Freeway, I think, peaked at around 175 million. I think they've got about 152 million now. And they have a utility for driving growth, which is forex trading, and then their system's quite simple but quite unique, where you supercharge you can supercharge L1s or stable assets, and then you're able to shift around between the two, actually. So then we're going in 50-50 ETH and stable, but actually if ETH took a 60% nosedive, then we could take our stable and drop it into ETH, and then you would make the 40-odd% APY, as well as the appreciation of ETH coming back up. So there's also, obviously we do our due diligence. We met the team, very professional. Yeah. And
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, I had a chat with the team as well, and it did seem like a good project. So it was just sort of cool to see you guys investing in it as well. And I think that's what's great about your project, is whatever you seem to be doing with the treasury is working, whereas a lot of other funds, a lot of other projects, perhaps not so. So yeah, I think the fact that you're investing into Freeway is a big kudos to Freeway, because the evidence is in your charts that what you're doing with the treasury funds is kind of working. And so what about Gray Money or something? The other one?
That's a VC. Yeah, that's a VC run by it's called Gray, GRAY. And we're just opening up a very large 6-figure position in Gray as well.
So sort of generally then, what do you think that you guys are doing right, that where other people seem to be perhaps doing it differently or wrong, and they're struggling? What's the difference?
Yeah, I suppose it's difficult. It's difficult to generalize because, and I spent a lot of time looking at crypto and DeFi in particular, and there was like 4 major reasons that we saw. So we see huge potential in DeFi and crypto. It's very efficient. You can raise capital very quickly, but then you see a ridiculously high failure rate, right? So that I found that really fascinating. And so we tried to identify what are the major reasons for project failure, and then prepare or design in to our protocol ways to tackle that. And I think one of those is the fact that manipulation by whales is a challenge within the industry, and that can, or dependence on whales as well. So for whale, maybe not even manipulation, but I've not by intention ended up being a whale in a token once, and then I didn't want to be in that token anymore, but then I was going to have a massive impact on the people that I'd built a relationship with, and it's very challenging. So ultimately we designed a protocol where a whale could leave today and it would have an impact on the chart, but actually it would also provide a buying opportunity for everybody else. It would provide a buying opportunity for the Phoenix to come in and swoop up a load of supply, and then we would be stronger long term. So we designed to handle that. Another issue is liquidity. So, in good times, there's capital everywhere, but what if all of a sudden there isn't any money available? And so we designed this system whereby without a single buy or sell, the protocol would eat itself over time. So we tackled that. And another major reason for failure that we saw is the teams themselves, quite frankly. Lots of young, inexperienced teams. It's no secret. Lots of bad actors also operate within DeFi. You have to, do a lot of research to avoid that. And I think probably at least 50% of failures come from the teams themselves, I would say. So, we're very responsible, very astute in terms of the way that we handle investors' money, and at the same time we play with a very straight bat as well. I think locking the liquidity is a bit of a sleight of hand trick, if I'm honest, within DeFi, because a project team will then create 20 shadow wallets and then dump the token 10 days after launch, and it just looks like things didn't work out. So it's without being too tongue-in-cheek, it might be too late. I think, I think if you just make sure that the team are playing with a straight bat and being fair, then there's a lot that can be achieved as well. Yeah,
fair enough. That's a good point. I think a lot of the time the projects do fail just because of the inexperience of the team. You can code, you can write a smart contract, that's great. Can you manage $1 million treasury? Can you manage publicity and marketing? Do you actually have experience running a business? Can you manage employees? What if there is a setback, and what can you do about it, and all this? So what experience do you have, or some of the key members of your team have in crypto and business running and all that type of stuff?
Been around the block a few times, so I've got sort of broad business experience. I've kind of a career of two halves, really. I've worked for several Fortune 500 businesses, and I've worked across progressive industries for a number of years. So I worked in energy and sustainability. I ran an electric vehicle charging company for a Fortune 500 business across a few markets. I worked in the startup software space, in the additive manufacturing industry as well. And that gave me a lot of exposure to sort of the startup/investment sort of environment. So I've got experience both in a corporate environment, at commercial and also business leadership level, and then I've got experience also in very raw early stage startups. And probably a good journey actually to bring me into this. You'd probably tell by those industries I'm very attracted to things that are quite disruptive and have the ability to change the world as we know it. You're absolutely right. I think there's some fantastic people within the industry, so I wouldn't want to layer myself over them. There's 22, 23-year-olds in the industry that are like a decade ahead of where I was at that age. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if you look at what's happened in the market over the last few months, as an individual, being able to lead other people, being resilient, not being starry-eyed, being able to understand when maybe your ego is trying to push you to make decisions rather than it making business sense to do something is really challenging. So I've been very lucky in terms of my career. I think one of our co-founders as well, our CMO, she's got both business experience and also marketing experience around branding. So again, probably the average age of our investor is maybe a little bit older than your typical sort of moon boy project, but then our team is also a bit more mature with life experience as well.
Yeah, great. No, great. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, I mean, I think that just goes to show, with an experienced team, and it's not to say that every other project is rubbish or with less experience you're going to do bad, but it just helps to have that experience, I think. And like you say, you have been around the block a couple of times. Look, I mean, with chatting with you about the project, it seems like it's all going really well. But maybe for someone who isn't so familiar with DeFi, or they're not familiar with the way that your project works, they might be thinking, wow, a token that never goes down, everything's just always going up, and, it all sounds great and the charts are really good. There is this thing of, well, let's sort of take a step back and be a bit cautious here. Like, is there a catch with any of this? Or, is it going to come crashing down? Or, is it too good to be true? I'm just sort of curious how you might respond to that if someone said that.
Yeah, and no, I think they're fair questions. I think if you look, so the 4 assets that we've launched so far, the NFT, 2 stable-backed assets, and MDB itself, and then Infinity is sort of like the 5th, all of them have grown, but actually very, very different sort of levels of growth across each of them, right? So I think, MDB Plus has grown 16% in 3 months. That's not mind-blowing growth, right? But that's because it comes with extreme, as low risk as you can possibly get in crypto, right? So that also means that you can't see huge gains. And Phoenix Plus has a bit of exposure in it, and the taxes are slightly higher. So therefore, the growth is much higher, but also it comes with a little bit of risk, albeit, the growth is, 27% in sort of 7-8 weeks. And but that also comes with a little bit of exposure. There's a real correlation there between risk and reward. And I think one of the biggest challenges within DeFi is probably that that many people want to convince you that you can break the relationship between the two, when that just isn't true. Whereas if you look at MDB was, like I say, it was hugely undervalued. So I think the fact that MDB has done a 5x over the last 6-7 weeks, in truth, half of that growth was probably it being undervalued, if I'm honest. So I think that is almost, like I say, is below sort of a base of where it really should have been, considering the fundamentals. But that has a bit of risk in it, right? You need to believe in us as a team to make the right decisions, to hire the right people, to fire the right people if you have to. You have to make difficult decisions to protect your investors and the success of any organization sometimes. And I think with MDB, and because MDB really is like a share in the ecosystem and it's impacted by everything else, it has definitely the largest potential, but also it relies on everything else in the ecosystem also working for it. So I probably haven't answered your question, Dan, but
no, sorry, you go.
Early still. So I would say that I think we're extremely early, in the mechanics of our ecosystem are one where we're not in this to times 10 and cash out. There's we're in this to have something that will, in 5 years you'll check in and think, Jesus, I wish I'd bought more back then, is probably what I want you to be saying to yourself. And that's the way the system is designed. It's not designed to lurch up. Our biggest, actually, I talked a lot about sort of our pre-work before we launched it. We identified our single biggest risk to the protocol was too much growth, actually.
Okay.
So
yeah,
the price going down lots actually isn't scary, because we can burn more supply. That doesn't worry us in the slightest. What does worry me is seeing the price, say for instance, the price went times 10 in 3 days. Well, if the trust fund has gone up 20% and the price has gone times 10, there's much less of that market cap that we can sustainably back. So the journey that we want to go on is to, I set a personal goal that we would times 10 by the end of this year, and we're already halfway on that journey. So if we times 2 from here, then we'll reach that end of year goal. And the reason I set that as a goal is because I believe that is a level, the way the mechanics of the protocol work, that we can sustain. I don't want to see times 50 and we can't keep it. I'd rather see times 10 over a period of time. And then that just becomes the base. And then from there, we can think about a times 10, but at a time frame that means it's going to keep around that level as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. And it almost seems like you're taking an attitude of sort of slow and steady, and let our work and let the protocol prove itself. And then that's what's going to bring the people on, rather than, hey, we've got 800,000 APY and, you can do this, which there were a lot of projects like that, and they all, a lot of them died. So yeah, I guess it's kind of cool because it's hard in an environment of DeFi where there are all these really cool looking things, and you can get Lambos and turn $1,000 into $1 million and all this type of stuff. When you're just like, yeah, we don't even want a 10x, we just want to see a little bit of increase over time. It's a brave thing to do, I think, when you're surrounded by all that stuff, but eventually it's going to show, the proof is in the pudding, so to speak.
And to be fair, our goal is, to 10x over a year. We're saying that we would like to be in a position where somebody can take part in the ecosystem. And the reason that works is because of the taxes as well. You pay to join the club, but you're supported by a fund that other people have already contributed to. And when you leave the club, you pay a tax to leave, but you leave, having made multiple X's, and you leave a bit behind for the next person. Now, if somebody wants to see that through for a lot longer period than you, then they've got the value of all the people that came in it. If Dan comes in today and he times 2 and he's like, I'm out of it, there we go, I'm happy, then Dan leaves a bit behind for people that want to stick with it for a long time, and that's just the way the system works. We designed a system where you actually want to be the last holder. That's the dream scenario for anyone, that it's just you and the trust fund left at the end. You wouldn't be worried about price at that point.
Yeah, okay. So who's going to be the last holder?
It's in truth, it can't really work. It doesn't really work like that. But I suppose it's because of the way LPs work. There'll always be a few holders, but I suppose there's who would be the last holder. I don't think it'd really work out like that. But it's figuratively speaking.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Cool. Let's move quickly just to some viewer questions. Some people submitted some questions. So, and this one is about price. It's from Tobe, who says, what do you think the price of MDB will be worth in 2 years' time?
That's a really good question. I think, and I always try and separate, maybe how I feel from what I think, and look, crypto is risky, right? And there's always so many external factors that you're relying on. But I think what we do is we model scenarios, and we have a sort of worst case, most likely, best case based on those models. But they always rely on a certain number of factors happening as well. So don't take anything I say as financial advice. It's an ecosystem that, the mechanics will work dependent on the behaviors of so many other people. It's not about what I do specifically. So anyway, I'm procrastinating on the question. In 2 years' time, as in 2 years from this point?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, well, considering we've already done a 5x, I would say that 2 years from this point, then I would be extremely upset if it wasn't at least a times 50, and I think times 100 is definitely doable. But I think times 1,000 is doable. But if it times 1,000, you've seen this lurch on the automatic market maker, and it means there's going to be a correction at some point. So it's probably not going to stay there. So yeah, I think times 50 is probably a very sensible baseline goal.
Cool, great, nice. All right, and the next question is from Comey. He has 2 questions. The first one is, will there be price charts for Phoenix Plus and the upcoming Infinity?
Yes.
Okay. And will these be found on Deck Screener or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe I could explain that, Dan, because the person who's asking that question understands the question, and you're probably thinking, and other people will be thinking, well, why wouldn't you have a chart? And what it is, so the way our stable-backed assets work, they don't actually need an LP pair, because you can send BUSD into the contract and it mints the supply, and you can redeem the supply, and it gives you BUSD back out of the contract. So the most accurate place to see the price of our stable-backed asset is actually on BSC scan. Now, people like pretty charts, right? So what we have to do so that people can see MDB Plus on a chart rather than looking at the contract itself, it doesn't need an LP pair, is that we take some BNB and we pair it with MDB Plus, and then we have to have an ARB bot that runs between the pair and the contract itself to make sure the two stay fairly similar, if that makes sense. So that's why, because there's always someone smart who says, you said it can only go up in price. But I looked on DEX and the price went like that and like that. And the reason it does that is because people want a pretty picture. So we have to create this pair which has an element of volatility, and then there's a bot balancing the two out. But on the actual contract price, it can only go up. And so Phoenix Plus at the moment is you can see on our Xenia app the price, and you can buy and sell through the app, which links to the contract, but there's no chart. But we are going to create Phoenix Plus BNB pair, and we'll get a bot, and it'll do the same, and it'll have a slight variation. Someone smart will come along and say, you said it can only go up there. That's just because of the pair, to create the pretty picture for people. But Infinity will be paired, because as soon as you pair two tokens, then it's that pair's visible on a deck. So yeah, it definitely will be on a chart. And
cool. All right, nice. Yeah. And so the second question was, how about providing some clarity on the current APY of the Phoenix FireClub NFTs on Xenia?
That's difficult to do because there was 3 mint prices. It's very difficult to do. So APY is what did it cost me and what's the return that I'm making, and also the floor price isn't something that's linked to a chart. It's a secondary asset. So you've got a number of moving pieces there that's very, very difficult to do. If you bought the Phoenix FireClub NFT at first mint, it was $750. I think the second one was $850. Don't hold me to this. And then the third mint was $900. So some people have bought it for cheaper than others. So therefore, but everybody receives the same amount of rewards every 30 days. So some people's APY is much better than others because they managed to get in on the first mint. And then included in APY is also the compound of rewards, as well as the growth of the asset itself, which is it's very challenging to do. But it only pays rewards every 30 days. So I think last time it paid $60 of rewards. So if it costs you $900, then I think what's that, 7.5% in a month. It's not something that we're going to we're not going to revamp the D app to accommodate that at the moment, to be fair. Sorry, you're wrong.
Yeah, no, sorry, my bad. It would be fair to say then that it's a complicated answer just because of the different prices and how long you've had it and all that type of stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough.
But the great thing is, if you look at the way the NFT is designed, is that you can earn from it, and the floor price should still increase. So if you don't like that, then you're in a fantastic position where you've earned 2 months rewards and you can go and sell it on the open market for more than it cost you, despite the fact that it's earned. If you look at, I think there's close to 40 million MDB tokens locked in that NFT contract, and with our price touching 1.3 at the weekend, that it's, despite the fact that it's paid out a lot, it's still got about $500,000 worth of MDB backing it.
Okay, cool. All right. And so the last question from Tobe again, he says, or this person says, when will MDB be listed in major exchanges?
Yeah, good question. That requires a lot of strategic planning, actually. And there's every exchange has pros and cons, limitations. They've got their own appetite for certain things, costs. And very few exchanges are interested in listing tokens with taxes, certainly any taxes of any significance. But there is a path that we see, but it's something that we will start exploring that over Q4 this year. And there's, because we now have an ecosystem, there is potentially a route where you could remove the taxes on MDB itself and then use MDB effectively as bait on a central exchange for people to come and look, a bit like BuySwap, right? You could buy or sell BuySwap tokens on Binance, but you would go to BuySwap's website to farm and do all the other things that they do. So there is a path, but it's going to take some time.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Cool. Well, I had just two more sort of final questions, which I love to ask everybody. But before I do that, I just want to let everybody who's watching know about the $100 MDB giveaway. So it's really simple to enter. Basically, what you need to do is you just need to subscribe and then leave a comment. Anything to do with MDB, just make sure you have the letters MDB in there. I'm going to filter it out via those letters. So if you don't have that, you'll get filtered out. And just say anything, what do you think about it, the future, how you're going with it, just whatever, or just write MDB, whatever you want. And then in a few days, I'll pick a winner and I'll get in touch with you and you'll just see it in the description. So if you do write a comment, then just keep an eye out for your notifications. In case I reply to you, I'll just randomly pick that. So that's if you want to enter that comp. And so, Danny, I was just curious, moving forward with the project, what are you most concerned about, if you have any concerns?
Look, I think I've always said about our project that our project is about moving money from the hands of the impatient to the patient. And the more patient you are, the more benefit there is of being in the ecosystem. And if you're impatient and you want to leave, that's perfectly fine. You can make your profit and off you go, and you leave everybody else in a slightly better situation. I think the same goes for us, right? I think we've just done sort of 400% growth in 7 weeks. I think crashing down hard for me is my biggest concern. So I'm very happy with where we are now, that isn't going to happen. If we get greedy, and I know people want to see 100x in a week, but there isn't many of you that can do well out of that situation. That's the harsh reality. So for every one of you that manages to sell on that 100x, the rest of you are going to be talking about the time that you had it and then didn't sell. So we want to move in a pace and a direction that means lots of people can capitalize. So so our biggest risk would be being impatient, and we need to we always work certainly at least a few months in advance. We need to continue to be proactive and patient, and the system will do its well. Our system is designed in a way we don't need to get to $1 billion market cap. Market cap is just like an ego number in our world. If we got to 50 million market cap, but you've burned 50% of your supply, then that's really healthy for the people that are in the protocol. So it's about ROI for investors rather than chasing sort of ego tickling numbers.
Ego tickling, very good way of putting it, I think. Cool. And so sort of similar thing, but the opposite. What are you most excited about moving forward?
I'm really excited by Infinity. Because I don't think there's very few people. If you're in crypto, you've already established a level of risk appetite that most people aren't comfortable with, right? So and quite frankly, our ecosystem has lacked that level of risk. And if Dan wins and I lose on Infinity, the money's not going anywhere else other than in Dan's pocket and out of mine. It really is an opportunity for people to work with each other. However, because of the capital synergy model, there is also additional capital coming in. So it means that it's not Dan win, I lose. It means that, maybe 2 people win, 1 person loses, rather than one or the other. And I think that's really exciting. I think don't trade with your eyes closed. I would say that, don't just shut your eyes and ape in your whole wallet, because that's just crazy. But if you're patient with it and you take your time, I think Infinity will be super, super exciting, and it just adds so much to the rest of our protocol. Our partner proposition we haven't talked about, actually. So we have synergy solutions and we provide B2B services to other protocols. We've got a massive partnership with EMP. I don't know if you've ever covered them, Dan. But yeah, EMP's fantastic team, great protocol, and after Infinity, we're actually launching an NFT partnership with them, and yeah, so that's going to be really exciting as well, because both Infinity and that NFT partnership is just going to light a fire under the EMP protocol and really help them on their journey, and it's also going to have a massive impact on our protocol as well.
Yeah, for sure. And that's actually something we didn't touch on at all, was your partnership with EMP. But they're another sort of farming staking protocol. You mentioned, did I look at it? Yeah, I did a video on them as well. So, if you want to go check out EMP, there's lots of videos about EMP out there. But yeah, I mean, that's great. And I love the way in your answer, how you said, it's two people win, one person lose, because essentially that's almost what crypto is for every gain that you get, it's somebody else's loss. Which, morally maybe not amazing when you think about it, but I guess that's with anything, sort of life perhaps, but the way that it's built into your system, more people are winning than losing, so exactly. I think that's cool. Nice. Was there any final words you wanted to say to the people listening before we wrap up?
No, I think maybe one thing that we haven't covered is kind of maybe what some of our sort of maybe emotional drivers for the project were. But I think, just to add, if anybody's new to MDB and they've maybe never seen me or never been, in the community before, whilst we've got, we love talking about the mathematics and these systems, so it's very sustainable, which maybe at times could sound a little bit geeky. In truth, it's actually also built around community. We're very passionate around, we fully understand that some of the world is binary and some of it is grey. And the grey part is the community, the passion. And if you come into our community and spend a bit of time, it's a very infectious place to be. And as well as, this responsible layer over the top. So I think some protocols, the community is like wild and it's really exciting, but maybe from a financial perspective, it's also a little bit scary. And then quite often, I think protocols that are very financially sensible, quite often you go in their community and it's like you've stepped into a library. And what we've tried to do is create something that has that fun edge, and it's a very infectious place to be, but it's not because people are losing their life savings as well. It's also it's also a common sense investment.
Yeah, I really like that answer, because community is so important, and projects pretty much, I've said this before, but they live and die by the community. And it's so nice to have devs and people that actually care about their community, and they're not just in it just to make a buck or whatever. And to support everybody, and I've hung out in there as well, and it is a great community. There are several projects with really good communities. So it is nice to hear that side of it. Cool. Well, look, was there anything else? Like, I mean, if you want to talk a little bit more about that.
If you keep asking me that question, Dan, I'll keep thinking of something and go on for another 10 minutes.
Okay, sure. Well, how about we put a pause on it for now then? And look, I mean, it's been really lovely to chat with you and just to hear about the project, and to hear, it's obvious you're so passionate about it and you're very committed to it. And I think it does have a bright future because of all the project is speaking for itself, and for people to see you and hear from you, I think that's a really great thing. So yeah, thanks so much for coming on and having a chat.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Yeah, it's been good to meet you too.